Okay, now that you know which model of the Buttonholer is the correct one for the model 301 and 404 straight stitch Singer sewing machines, I want to show you some of the different parts of this and just a little explanation of it, because just like with the sewing machines, I think if you understand a little bit how it works, you will have more success using it, and if anything ever seems not right or it's not functioning right, you'll have a good idea of you know what things should be doing, and so you can imagine where the problem lies and have an idea of maybe lubrication or cleaning or a worn out part. So let's just go ahead with that, and I'm going to I took a bunch of close-up pictures and some scans that I could get on my scanner so you can see them up close. So I'll be putting those slides into the video, and you can pause on them, you know, as long as you want, and take a look at them and so forth. And remember that all of this information you can get in your instruction manual. And I'll mention again that in the description below the video, I'll give you a link to where you can find a free copy if you need a copy of the manual. So let's just start with the feed cover plate again. The purpose of this is to protect the feed mechanism on the sewing machine, and it also helps the cloth clamp move the fabric you're sewing back and forth pretty easy. And it's all metal, and it comes with its own mounting screw that is made to stay in there, not fall out. So when you're buying one of these or looking to buy or going to use, you want to be sure and have this. The other thing I'll show you again is the slotted clamping screw, and it's, as I mentioned before, it's a heavier duty than the typical thumb screw for the presser foot, like this clamping screw, and you want to be sure and use that. It's going to work a lot better for you than just a presser foot thumb screw. Okay. Then we talked about the 10 different templates, and the fact that I don't have the eyelet template, but I was able to get these on the slide, or on my scanner, sorry, on my scanner, and I made a row of the back side, and then I made a row below it of the working side, and some people call this the back, some call it the top, because when you open the buttonholer to change it, that's what you see. But anyway, you'll notice that some of the lengths are the same, like 1 1/16, and some of these are what's called a keyhole. So there's like a little half eyelet at the top when you form the buttonhole, and that's usually for a heavier fabric to help you get the button started through there, maybe like a coat or a jacket, something like that. So I've got those all lined up, and I just snagged a picture of the eyelet template off of the internet and put that on there too, so you can take a look at these close up. And I put the inch size there, so that'll give you a complete list of the 9 different sizes. So take a look. This big white knob is the only plastic part on the machine, and it's called the adjusting knob, and it's used to position the cloth clamp. They have a recommended way of positioning it when you're going to line up your fabric, where to put the fabric for your buttonhole, and where to have this cloth plate when you pull up the bobbin thread up through the needle plate and up through the clamp cloth so you can sew. And then there's a way you can make longer buttonholes than the template, like that 1 1/16. I mean, you could make a 1 1/2 or 2 inch, or if you just wanted to use it as a design, you could make a 6 inch buttonhole pattern. And you can use this for monogramming and stuff. So anyway, there's different adjustments to make on this clamping cloth, and that's controlled by this adjusting knob. And if you want to get inside the device to clean it or lubricate it, you'll need to take this adjusting knob off, and it just screws out. But at the bottom of the knob there, it's got a little spring, and sometimes it just seems like you can just turn it left forever and it won't come out. And if that's the case, just pull some upward or outward pressure as you turn it, and that seems to help. So you can see the little hole it goes in, and this is the knob itself, and there's a little like a coil spring here on the end, and you can take a look at the adjusting knob close up. And then I talked about the cloth clamp. This kind of takes the place of your presser foot when you're using the buttonholer, and it's got little lines for gauging to help you adjust it to the right position. And the bottom has little nubs in it. And again, this is all metal, but that helps grip and hold the fabric secure while the button holder is swinging this cloth clamp back and forth to form the satin stitching when you make the buttonhole. And it's just on a little pin swivel on each side here. And in that area, I'll give you a good look of the shank, which is what is used with the clamping screw to clamp the device to the presser foot. I mean the presser bar. So that's the shank, and this is the cloth clamp. You want to take a look at it. Okay, the next part of this that they mention is the lock, and on this retaining plate there's a little cutout here, and there's a tab built into the base so that once you put the template in and close it, it keeps the template in place. And the way they designed it to open was with your left hand, you push on the base of it right here, and there is a spring that goes through here, and that will push the base past the tab, and that will unlock it. There's the little tab I'm talking about, and there's the little cutout in the plate. When you close it, you just squeeze it together. But don't try prying this off. You can do it, but that's the hard way. And you can bend the little tab and the lock. Now I've also seen people who will just grasp the bottom of that plate between their thumb and fingers and you know, push it towards the back and unlock it like that. So if you want to do that, that seems a common way people do it. But they suggested just pushing it on the base right there to unlock it. And again, you don't really want to, you know, get into this pulling it off like this, because you definitely can bend some stuff, and it's a lot harder on your thumb and stuff and fingers than just pushing here or pushing on the sides like that. Okay, so if you can take a look at the lock. The next part I want to show you is the fork arm. This locks the device. Well, it doesn't really lock it, but this straddles over the needle clamp. And you'll see that when I show you how to install it. And this fork arm, as the needle goes up and down, it moves the cloth clamp, and it also positions the stripper foot, which I'll explain in a minute. And there's a gear mechanism inside here, very simple, but that's called the fork arm. Okay. And on what would be the left side, since you mount it like this facing you, this part is called the bite adjuster. And in the early zigzag days, Singer called zigzag, they called it bite, B-I-G-H-T. And one of the meanings of that word is like a loop or bend of rope. Like, that's not the end of the rope. That was called a bite. And I guess to them the bend in the thread, I don't know, maybe it was like a bend in rope, so they called it bite. And later on they did away with that and just called it zigzag. And you know, zigzag is in the dictionary is a sharp alternating path or pattern like that, but it is called a bite in the manual, and some people still refer to that. And this bite adjuster is basically a notched lever in here, and it goes from 1 to 6 or narrow to wide, and you depress it down so the notch comes out of the holder up in here, and then while you've got it down, you slide it left to right to go from wider to narrower. And this is the only thing I don't think was the best design on these earlier buttonholers. I mean, it's sturdy and it's going to last forever, but the base of it is this little kind of like a rivet here in a slot, and it's just a little difficult to do. And once you let it go, it's the notch on the lever is supposed to pop back up in there and keep it from moving. So I guess they had to make it pretty strong, but that makes an adjustment of how far this is going to swivel by moving the point in the plate of where it's going to be doing the swiveling. You know, if the point of swivel is way up here, it's going to be a little tiny narrow, a tiny narrow stitch. and in the middle you can see the cloth plate can swing more at the end. And if you get down to the wider stitch, you can see that it swings even more. So when you're moving this adjustment, it's actually changing that swivel point by moving a heavy lever in there and then locking it in. Maybe I'll take the cover off of this here and I'll show you some of that. But it just, I don't know, it's not to me it's not the best system. It works, and I guess usually you don't change the lever that much, but I mean, I cleaned this and greased it and everything, and it's still, yeah, it's kind of stubborn to me. But back to this part, this is called a template retainer plate, and you unlock it and pull that up so that you can put your templates, grab one here, you can put your templates in and out, and the little template gear in there matches up with the teeth in the template, and you see that the template has a little kind of rounded top, and that goes towards the lock when you put this in. And if it needs to sit really flat, like see that one's not in there, so if it doesn't want to fit right in there, they suggest turning that knob a little bit to get the gears to engage. This one's going to be a little tricky because I have the knob out, but there I just wiggled it around a little, and now you can see it fits nice and flat. On the inside of the retainer plate is a spring here, and that's what pushes on that template. So that pushes back against the lock, and it puts a little spring onto the template to help keep it in place also. And then this black metal is the cover, of course. It covers all of these mechanisms. Now, like on the zigzagger, if you saw the video I did of the zigzagger for this machine, the automatic zigzagger, the template really wasn't made to be, I mean, the cover wasn't really made to be coming off and stuff. But this, after you remove the adjusting knob, there's just one cross-cut or Phillips head screw here that holds that cover onto the body. So you can just loosen that and pull it right out of there. There we go. And I don't know, what is that? Not quite an inch long, maybe. And you can take a look at the cover and the screw here closer up with the indicator numbers for the bite, and it's just you know, like a steel. You take a look at it. And then this little pointy finger, how can let me get the fork arm up, and maybe I think if I push this back a little, this little pointy finger, as I'm calling it, see how that sticks down there? Try and show it a little from this side. That's called the stripper foot. I don't know why they call it stripper, and I don't know why they call it a foot, except it acts kind of like a presser foot. when it's in position and the needle bar is coming down, that little finger or foot presses down onto the fabric near where the needle goes and holds it, I think, while the needle's going in and out. And then as the needle comes out, this foot lifts up so that when the stripper foot swings left to right, it's not dragging on the fabric. So when it swings to one side and the needle's on the way down, that stripper foot pushes down on the fabric, holds it while the needlework is done, and then raises up so the fabric can go. And that's also part of the mechanism controlled by the fork arm. I'll try and show it here. You see how it's raising up, and then as the needle bar would be coming down, how the stripper foot goes down, stitches made, needle bars coming up, and you can see that it lifts that, sorry it's kind of a jerky, but it lifts that stripper foot up. So here you can get a closer look at the stripper foot. And since we got the cover off, I took some pictures. Just there's a nice top-down view of the buttonholer with the cover off, all the mechanisms inside, and there's various little oil point or lube points. And you know, it's funny, the different buttonholes manual, some talk about put oil here, and then some say the old motor lubricant. So I put grease everywhere they said to put oil, and I put oil everywhere they said to put grease, and I don't notice any difference in performance. I followed this one to the guide and put grease where they said to put, and a couple places to put oil. But it's so easy to take that adjusting knob off and pull the cover off and, you know, blow it out, or I just take it and spray it with crud cutter in the kitchen sink like I clean the sewing machines, and blow it dry and put oil or grease everywhere they say to do it. And you know, the whole process takes about 10 minutes and it's good to go for 6 months. So but there's the top down view. Okay, and then I give you a better view of this fork arm gear system over here. How that little lever on the upswing pushes on the little buzzsaw gear, I call it, and then slides down to the next, and it stays in position by this little tiny spring here, and then it locks into the gear for the next upstroke. And then these mechanisms in here is what moves that stripper foot up and down and moves the cloth clamp side to side. Then on the other side, I mentioned the bite adjuster and this lever, and you see here it just pushes down to disengage from up in here. And there's a I think like a little post or tooth that sticks down in there. You push it down, then you can adjust it. Let me adjust it narrow, and now you can see these little notches and a little bend in the metal that secures it into the notch. And then when you press it down below that, you can slide it to the width you want, and then when you get it, let it go, it goes into another notch. And this is the pivot, what I call the pivot rivet that I was showing you. is right here, and these are all areas that you can lubricate to help make things operate smoother. So take a look at the side view of the buttonholer. And then the last part here is this template retaining plate, and it's on a pin hinges. There's just a little steel pin that goes through there that it hinges on. When you push it up and open it up, I showed you the inside with the spring. You can maybe see some of the grease it says to put on there, and so that's what that looks like with the little lock on the end. And then when this clamping plate moves and follows the template around up there, you see how that metal on metal slides to follow that template. And then there's the template gear in there that mates up with the teeth in the template. And I don't know if that's the proper name for it. I just call it the template gear. And I got a closer picture of that. Okay, so that's there's a tour inside and out of the buttonholer for the 301. And then reassembly, the only thing I found you have to watch for, you can look up here to line up the hole for the knob and the screw, but it's kind of easy to get this this side of the plate in the wrong position. So just check it on both sides, even when you get it when you get your holes lined up, because it's easy to put this side too far over. It's real easy to do that. So you got to be sure that the plate, the cover plate, that covers all the way down around. And then of course the holes will line up, and then the screw just screws back in. And I found some of these where, you know, people have tightened the screw too tight, maybe thinking to deadhead the screw, thinking, well, you know, when the screw hits the bottom, that's how tight they want it. But that's not true. And you can, I've had these where this metal has been all puckered down and bent and even cracked because people crank down a little too hard. So you want it hard enough that the cover doesn't rattle on the base, but just don't crank it too hard. And then when you go to put your adjusting knob back on, just be sure that the spring is there. It usually just stays right on real good. It's like attached, but I've had a couple over the years that fell off and rolled away. We'll just be sure your spring is on there. It's better if I do it there. There we go. You can hear it, the little crank in there. It's not changing this because there's no template. Okay, that's the tour. That's more than you ever wanted to know about a buttonholer, probably. But I will get position here, and then we're going to put the bobbin or the buttonholer onto the machine, mount it on there, and we're going to play around, see if we can make some buttonholes.